What's going on, guys? This is Dustin Wright. More of what I'm doing, what I'm going through to help you get to where you're going. So, before we get into it, please give me a like. Please subscribe. Go turn on your post notifications and let's get started.
I've been moving, trying to start no trouble with me. Trying to keep it peaceful is a struggle for me. Don't pull up at 6 a.m. and cuddle with me. You know how I like it when you loving on me. I don't wanna die for them to miss me. Guess I see the things that they wishing on me. Hope I got some brothers that outlive me. They gon' tell the story, shit was different. God's plan.
So, today, we're gonna talk about buying a home versus renting a home. Which one is better? Well, this question is a tough one because it all depends on your situation. Okay? Where are you in your life? Are you someone that needs to have a temporary residence because you move around a lot for either work or you being in college? You know, it's not the best idea for you to buy a home if you have to travel to 3 different states, once a year. Buying a home wouldn't be the most beneficial factor to you because you would have to be moving so much. So at this point in time in your life, you would probably rent because you don't need a permanent residence. Now, if you are starting a family, you've been with a woman for some years now, you want to take the next step. Well, buying a home and securing a home, for school zones. So there's some place that your kids have to call home. Well, maybe now it's time to buy a home, okay? These are questions you have to ask yourself before we ask the question, is it better to rent or buy a home? Now, there's a ton of different factors. What I'm doing is I want to give to you the questions I would ask myself, whether I should buy or rent a home. So you can make the decision and base that upon what I tell you. So, buying or renting. The second thing you must ask yourself, can I afford to buy a home? Can I afford it? Do I have the financial stability right now to put up the down payment? Now, a minimum down payment nowadays is 3.5% on an FHA loan. Now, that may vary state to state, but 3.5% is an entry-level loan for a first-time home buyer. That's one of the minimums you can do. On a $250,000 home, which is the average in my area that I sell homes in, that's about $8,700, give or take. So with that being said, do you have the money for a down payment? Now, there's closing costs associated with that. Depending on how the deal goes, all deals are different. You'll have to set, a couple grand aside for closing costs. It's not the cheapest to buy a home, but yes, it is very advantageous. You get an asset. Now, not only are you paying down your asset, that asset's appreciating and making you money over time. So you live in the home 10 years, you sell it, you should have some equity in the home. Now, granted, markets go up and down, but over time, real estate has been one of the best investments a person can ever make because even hurricanes almost can't take them down. So you need to ask yourself, can I afford it? If you can't afford to buy a home, you can't buy a home. You're going to end up renting. But if you want to own a home, you need to structure yourself to where I'm doing this, and this these next 6 months while I'm renting, so I'm able to buy a home. So I'm able to get myself out from under a landlord. But you have to know how to do it and what direction you're going. The next thing is you need to ask yourself, is it going to be cheaper for you to buy a house or for you to rent? Now, it depends on what state you're in. Here in Florida, I work mostly in the St. Lucie County, Martin County, sometimes Palm Beach County areas. So, if it makes more sense and it's cheaper to rent instead of pay a mortgage, you need to make sure that you are looking at that factor because you don't want to put money down the drain. Now, in this area that we're in, our rent is very high. Rent is extremely expensive. I've sold homes with mortgages, with taxes and insurance and everything that are cheaper than what the customer of mine was paying for rent. So you need to make sure in your market, in the place that you live, that it makes sense to buy a home because you don't want to pay more for a home than you can rent it out for. Then you're backwards on equity, okay? You don't want to have a mortgage payment that exceeds what you're able to rent the home for if you're an investor. But you have to keep the same mindset being a homeowner, because if you can save money by renting a home, well, then you can put that money elsewhere until, the rent and the mortgage catches up. But you don't want to throw money down the drain. So you have to make sure that it makes sense. It makes financial sense to buy instead of rent. And second to that, interest rates are at an all-time low. So it would make sense to buy because money is very inexpensive right now. Once interest rates are higher, it's going to cost more to borrow money to buy a home. So you have to keep things in consideration. Next thing is you have to look at where your income is. Do you have a steady job that you're making a career? Okay. Are you working part-time, still trying to figure your life out a little bit, and you're still seeking better opportunities? Are you trying to grow a business? You have to ask yourself these things when you ask this question. Should I rent or should I buy a home? Well, if you have a business like myself, I need to make sure that I'm putting money to the business so I can grow my business, so I can make more income, so then I can buy a beautiful home when the time comes. But you need to make sure it's right in your life to do that. You can't buy a home and grow a business at the same time, because one or the other may take a loss or may take a hit. Now, assuming both of those are important, home ownership and building a business, you don't want to jeopardize one for the other. You have to make sure it makes sense right now to do or make that step. Are you in a good career? Are you in stable employment? Have you saved enough money to be able to do this next step and buy a home? These are all things you have to ask yourself. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is, does it make sense right now to buy a home in the market? Like the crash before, okay, home prices were extremely high. I talk to homeowners now. I mean, they still can't get as much for their home as they bought. And the first crash that we were going through, not quite the Corona one right now, but the one in 04 and 05. So you need to make sure it's a good time to buy. Interest rates are low right now, okay? You can still get good deals, all right? And you can still invest in real estate, but you have to make sure that when you're buying, you assess your situation, you figure out if now is the time for you to buy a home or buy an investment for either yourself or your portfolio, and you have to just make sure it makes sense. Because if it doesn't make sense, it just won't make any money, okay? Guys, do your due diligence. Make sure you're doing the work, putting it in, because no one's going to do it for you. Because we're going to the top. We can't stop. We're going to be 100%. I'll catch you guys next time.